Hi guys, it's the Island Girl and I'm back with another one for you today. And today I'm checking out Americans in England. 10 things that surprised us about the UK. And I'm getting this from the Magic Geekdom. I hope you go over and show them some love. The link for this video will be in the description below. So go and show them some love, guys. All right. So I want to see the 10 things that surprised them when they got to the UK. So come on in, right back, put a smile on your face and enjoy. To all my regular schmeglers, day one studie pie, studie poos. Come on in, right back, and put a smile on your face. And like I said, this one is Americans living in England, 10 things that surprised us about the UK. Let's get into this video. Here we go now.
When we took our first trip to the UK, we were surprised, sometimes even shocked, by quite a few aspects of our experience as Americans in the UK for the very first time. Today we're going to talk about 10 of those surprises and how over time we've truly come to appreciate most of them about our neighbors across the pond.
Okay.
And I'm going to start with not needing a car because that was something that we were very surprised by. I felt like we did quite a bit of research in preparing for our first trip to the UK.
Yeah.
And when we planned it, I don't know, we're so American. I just assumed you needed a car. And that's not the case. You can get around so much easier with public transportation in the UK than you can in the US. If you were planning a trip to the UK, you may not want to have a car because you have to drive on the opposite side of the road that you're used to, potentially.
Here we go.
You're doing it.
I am. It's weird, but it's wow.
And the roads are very narrow and can be kind of scary and intimidating. You don't need a car, and we learned that the second trip. We didn't rent a car at all, and it was lovely to travel by train everywhere.
I think the aspect of having the car the first trip was nice, but also you don't really need it. Like you said,
Okay.
The train system is just really good there. It's so much better than America. Granted, it's much smaller to cover that area, but trains go to most major cities, and then even smaller cities have a decent bus line, it seems like, too.
Yeah.
Besides being more walkable than a lot of our cities are.
Yeah, there are very few places where I felt having a car was preferable to not having a car. It is kind of funny to look back on that first time that we went and just how, without even thinking about it, I just booked us a car because I was like, well, we're going to take a road trip. That's what you do, right? I should also mention that these are by no means in order of importance. Although, number one, I did reserve for the immediate shock that I experienced from the moment that we stepped into Heathrow Airport. I feel like it was the first thing that I noticed. I don't know. It still blows my mind. So we'll continue on. Number 9.
Okay, that's awesome to know because it's as she said, it's an American thing. Anytime you travel anywhere, the first thing you think of, okay, we need to get a car, we need to get around properly. But it's good to know that you don't necessarily, surprisingly, that you don't need a car. But like she said, the tube, you get it, it's on time, and it goes pretty much everywhere. That's awesome to know. In the US here, oh boy. You need a car, in a sense, to get everywhere because the train system is a mess if you don't understand it. They're never on time. It's always packed. And taxi, you go and pay your arm and a leg sitting in a taxi to get from point A to point B. So that's awesome to know. Let's move on to number 9.
I mean, we kind of already discussed this, but the narrow roads, I mean, we've talked about it a lot. It can be very intimidating to drive on roads that are, you know, hundreds, if not thousands of years old compared to our big wide roads in America. But I think one of the things that surprised us even more from the experience, because I think you kind of know that going into it, but I was very surprised at how difficult parking can be.
Yeah, there's not very much free parking at all. Pretty much anywhere you go, you're going to have to go to a pay lot to park your car.
At least doing touristic things like we have done, and I think maybe that speaks to our experience traveling, is that we were going to places that are popular destinations to travel to. And so, yeah, car parks are difficult. The spaces can be very narrow because they're trying to pack as many cars as they can into these small little car parks. it can be very intimidating to not only try to find parking, but to, you know, not have to pay at least £1 or £2 everywhere you go, which it's not the worst thing. You just have to prepare for it, which we were not. There's a lot more free parking in the US.
There is. And I would say if you are going and renting a car or you have a car there, get change. Get like pound coins, because a lot of them that even took credit cards didn't work very well.
That's true. We would go to a car park in a pretty remote area, and it would be like 7 people standing around holding their phone up trying to get a signal so that they could pay for parking. So you can't avoid that if you have
actual cash.
Change. Yeah.
Number 8.
All right, here we go again. So I noticed that too in some of my videos, the narrowness of the road. The roads are very small. Unlike the US here, we're used to them big lanes, enough space to go about your business. And when you talk about driving on the other side of the road, and yes, that can be a little intimidating too, because we're used to being on the opposite side here in the US. And parking. I didn't realize that you guys, didn't have much free parking. Well, I haven't visited yet, but I'm glad I'm watching this one. And make sure you have change. Is your signal that bad? Well, I guess it depends on where they went. Let's move on to number 8.
Would be that I think American travelers and just kind of international travelers in general do seem to mostly just go to London and call that good, when there's so much more to see there. I mean, we love London, but also some of our favorite places are smaller cities and towns and villages there.
Yeah, I would say to layer on what you're saying, one of the things that surprises me about our travels throughout the UK is that we have a lot of people, even within the UK, who tell us that we've been to places that they've never been. And maybe part of that is because as Americans, things feel so close to us when we're there. Things seem so easily to accomplish, to just stop in these different places. I think that kind of surprised me that more people in the UK don't even travel kind of beyond certain areas. Like, I think a lot of people accomplish the big things, but there's a lot of places that you guys have let us know that you've never been to, and I'm surprised because there are some amazing places in the UK, and they're mostly outside of London. Not that London isn't great, but if you are planning a trip to the UK as someone who's never been to the UK, do yourself a favor and go at least one other place outside of London.
Go to York, go to Cornwall, go to Newcastle. All great places.
Yeah, it can be pretty expensive to make a trip to London or to make a trip to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
When you can have your money goes so much further in somewhere else that isn't as touristic, but still lovely. There are a lot of great places outside of London.
So I'm on board with that. And if you guys know me by now, and you always hear me say, I don't want to go to London first. I want to go in the smaller area to get that homey feel, to get persons who, you understand? I don't want to be in the concrete jungle. I just don't. I just feel like it's more, what's the word I'm looking for? Authentic to go out in the outskirts, in the villages, in the Cotswold, places like those. For me, I think it's a better pick, and then you'll get to enjoy it more. You understand? To be with the locals. That's why I say to myself, yeah, I want to go to London, but London is not my first pick at all when I get to the UK. So I'm excited that she said that, because I'm always going ranting about that. I'm like, I want to go in the countryside. I just want to have that amazing feel. You know what I mean? And then I'm traveling with my kiddos. So yeah. And as she said, London can be very expensive. Let's move on, guys.
7. Yeah. Okay. So here is one that I don't know that we've talked about a lot before, but it is an incredible thing. And I was so surprised to learn about it, especially as Americans. It feels kind of like a weird thing to be able to walk on people's private land, and that is footpaths. British footpaths are an extensive network of these footpaths throughout Britain that basically allow you to walk on private land and just take in all the different kinds of scenery that the different lands offer. One of my favorite memories of exploring the UK, especially when I think about memories that we've shared with our friends, is I treasure the fact that we got to walk through a footpath in Dorset with our friends Jason and Josh.
Yeah. We're just in the middle of this like field with cows. There was a little spot that had preserved dinosaur footprints, which is just wild.
I love that we quite literally have to walk through a field with cows in it to get to where we're going. This is one of the coolest things I think we've done in England so far.
It was so amazing. It just was a highlight of the last trip that we took there. That is just so neat. There are so many footpaths like that. I know when we were in Robin Hood's Bay, that is the end of, I think it's called the Coast to Coast footpath that goes all the way to Cumbria, I think is where it connects. Yeah. It's like 200 miles long or something around that.
What?
And I think it would be so fun to plan like a bucket list trip to do something like that. But at the same time, we are not super adventurous, so I'm a little intimidated by the idea of walking 200 miles on a footpath. But maybe you have a suggestion for us for a footpath that we could start with. Maybe you know about some good footpaths that we should check out, because I'm all about them. The thing that is, I think, surprising about footpaths as Americans is that just doesn't seem like something that we would have here.
No, I feel like people are very more...
No trespassing.
Yeah, protective, I guess.
Yeah.
And I can see why. I mean, people can be disrespectful to people's land here, but I think it would be very cool if we had more footpath kind of things where we could walk through, I don't know, if you're in Utah or Arizona, like the desert. And there are like national parks and state parks that can offer that kind of thing, but it's just so cool that there's so many places you can just go and take a cool footpath in the UK.
Yeah, we have some that I would consider kind of similar. Like you can do the one that runs from like Mexico up to BC. I think you'd be hard pressed to convince Americans to make more of them.
Yeah.
But I am curious, what do you think about footpaths? Because I don't know. I imagine that they are probably well loved by people who use them, but maybe farmers or things don't love it. Maybe their land does get disrespected or something. So you'll have to let us know what you think about footpaths and also which ones we should do in the future.
Another thing is being...
So footpath, oh my word, just hearing her said footpath, I'm like, okay, you get to walk through people private land just like that, and there's no issue. You're not charged, you're not run off. You don't see that sign say, "Do no trespass." Like, that ain't happening here, guys. It's straight up. That ain't happening. You can take yourself and go around, or you can get prosecuted for trespassing. It's like crazy. And to know that you guys have footpaths, just private land, you can just go through. That is amazing. And she's saying there are a lot of them. That is just mind-blowing to the fact that, okay, I can walk through here. I can track through here and not be prosecuted and not be charged. Can you imagine that? Just going through and enjoying the scenery of different places and not be bothered by anyone. That is amazing to know. I ain't gonna lie. That's just awesome to hear. Let's continue.
Treated like pretty nicely as Americans. People told us that certain cities and stuff, people wouldn't be nice. And I feel like pretty much we had a positive experience everywhere we went.
Yeah, I think Americans traveling internationally is a precarious thing because it is known that we are not well liked in certain many areas, places. Yeah, like it's just known that people don't necessarily like Americans as a whole. And so I think it was surprising that I didn't have a single bad experience with anyone anytime.
That's really nice to know.
Like the total of 7 months that we spent in the UK, I think we've just had nothing but really lovely experiences. Yeah. This is one that I think is kind of silly, but it also, I mean, it makes sense. And that is hot and cold taps. Have you ever in your life come across a separate hot tap and a separate cold tap in the US? Because I can name like maybe 3 experiences total.
It's really only a handful of places.
Yeah. And so I think going to the UK and having that be the standard experience almost. I mean, a lot of newer facilities won't do that, but there's so many places where
still.
And it's like, well, what do I do? Do I like quickly run my hands back and forth and try to go between the two taps?
Yeah.
Or do I just use the hot one and hope it doesn't get too hot before I'm done washing my hands? Yeah, it's a very interesting experience as an American that we're not quite used to. And I do get, it makes sense that there are so many. There's a lot of older plumbing. I mean, we experienced, I guess that's another surprise, with showers and things like that. Like, it just, you know, different.
So hold on. Question. She said showers, and that's where my head was going. Does your two top, is it the same thing in a shower? Is it hot and cold? Or does it merge into one when it comes to your shower? That's the first thing. Second, no, I must say, I don't know if I find you guys to be rude. I've never seen that in any of my videos. Yes, you always hear Americans are not really liked by other nation whenever time they travel, but it is different to, you know what I mean? I'm like, you guys seem very polite and be blunt if you need to be. That's how I see you guys, and I like that. That's the kind of people that you just say what you gotta say, and you understand what I mean? And you don't seem rude to me. So I don't think I'm surprised about that one. That one doesn't surprise me. Because based on how I interact with you guys on here, I'm loving it, you know? And yeah, the top, I've seen that one on another video before, so I'm familiar with the fact that you have hot and cold top, which is weird. But like you said, it goes down to plumbing, older plumbing.
Differences, things that you're kind of used to in your day-to-day life, and you travel somewhere else and you're like, huh, that's a little different. And yeah, it was just kind of a surprise. One of those things that I'm sure if someone came here and was like, wow, there's so many taps that aren't hot and cold, I'd be like, I wouldn't think anything of it. But,
yeah, that's fair.
You know, just those differences that kind of, especially our first trip, really stood out of like, this seems kind of inconvenient.
Another thing that was interesting and I guess kind of jarring and definitely different was the first time we went to get some food that wasn't like a quick serve restaurant, that we were finished what we ordered and we're just kind of waiting and waiting because the service is different there.
And we talked about coming back to the US after spending 8 months in Europe in our reverse culture shocks video that we made. I think one of the things that really was a weird adjustment to come back to was just the level of service that you get at restaurants and bars and things like that in the US. And I think on the flip side, the first time that we went to the UK, it was alarmingly weird. It was like, is somebody going to check on us? What's going on? Like, where is everyone? Where does our server go? And we did. We spent probably 30, 45 minutes just sitting there waiting for them to bring the bill, because that's what they do in the US. We didn't want to be rude and flag someone down and ask for the bill, but then it turns out that that's what you do. That's the customary thing. And I think over time we've come to appreciate the level of service because it doesn't feel fake. It just feels natural. You don't feel rushed by having somebody bring you your bill before you're even done eating. But the first time that we went there, and it took a few times where we were like, gosh, this is just weird. And finally we said something to our friends and they were like, yeah, you got to ask for the bill. And we didn't know that. We learned that the hard way a few times over. Yeah,
I don't even know that I'd call it level of service, because it sounds like the equivalent is kind of lower level. It's just kind of more pleasant.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of touched on this before too, like talking about friendly Americans versus friendly people in the UK. And I think why I kind of prefer the friendliness of the UK is because when people are friendly, you know it's genuine. It's not out of a need to get a tip or out of, trying to be. I feel like just sometimes Americans are kind of fake, and it's not all the time. It's not everyone, but I feel like it just feels more natural in the UK. If someone's nice to you, they're just being nice to be nice. And I don't know, maybe that's a little more rare here in the US. Maybe not. I don't know.
It might change. Our pay structure and tipping culture is kind of changing here a little bit. People are getting paid a little better to do those kind of service jobs. So maybe that'll change in the long run. But right now, they are pretty different.
Yeah.
And I don't see it changing. And then it, like you said, it depends on state, but they still aren't paying properly. So she's right. I'm sorry. I'm gonna lean in on what she said pertaining to service being fake, because they fluff you up to get a good tip. Period. And I'm happy that she said, "Oh, we had to literally ring a bell or beckon for somebody to give us our bill. She don't feel rushed. You understand?" And that's something that I need to know going in. But it's like you're not being disturbed. You're at your own pace. You're not being rushed to get out of the restaurant. That is awesome. And it's somebody not coming to you every minute saying, "You good? Need anything else?" And you know it's not genuine. He's on the optimistic side, because he's like, no, it ain't changing. And the tipping culture is very bad here. No, it's getting worse. I don't want even to get into that. But yeah, that's one of the things that I really look forward to when getting there. Just sitting there and enjoying myself. And like you said, they be nice. You know, it's genuine. It's not fake. I like that. Let's continue.
Yeah, it just is. It was definitely surprisingly different level of service. And I know a lot of you have let us know when you've come to the US, it's been the same thing where you're like, why are you guys all up in my business? Please let me eat my meal in peace. And I think we've kind of become a little bit more leaning towards that direction.
Yeah.
But when we first went to the UK, it was not the case. It was like, what is happening? Where is our server? That was definitely a big surprise. I guess I would tack on to that just the length of time that you could spend in a restaurant too, or a pub. Like there's no rush to get you out.
Yeah.
You're just there to have a good time. And gosh, I appreciate that. Thank you for doing that, because sometimes in the US I do feel rushed, and it makes me almost feel guilty. Like, oh, I gotta hurry and eat and get out of here because this server needs to make their money. But it is just, yeah. It's one of those differences that I definitely appreciate the British culture of serving in restaurants and pub culture a lot more than I did initially.
While we are talking about pub culture kind of and food and stuff like that, I would say that the UK portion sizes can be drastically different from the US portion sizes, and probably in a more healthy and just better way.
That's something we haven't, I guess, talked about as much. We've covered food a lot on this channel. There's a lot of differences in food that make me like the US version of food a little bit less. And portion sizes is, I think, one of them. On the one hand, I think when we first got there, it is a little bit surprising to see a regular portion of food and not have like this huge plate of food that you really don't need to eat. But I don't notice the difference as much now, but I do remember that it was pretty shocking at first.
And I feel like, there's exceptions to that. You can find a pretty large, like fish and chips, something like that. But in general, yeah, they just seem like you guys have more reasonable portion sizes.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. That's a good point. Because we went to Vancouver, BC, or not Vancouver, BC, Victoria, BC, and we ate fish and chips there. And we each ordered one because we were thinking they were going to be just like little fillets, like little tenders kind of thing, like we do typically in the US. Yeah. And they were a lot larger than we were expecting. Not the huge portion of fish and chips in the UK, but they were definitely pretty large. It was like, oh yeah, I don't know why we thought that these would be smaller than they were.
Yeah, I don't know.
I do have to make an honorable mention, just talking about, British food, pub food, and what?
Oh, I know where you're going.
He knows where I'm going.
Yeah.
Diet Coke in a glass bottle. I was so pleasantly surprised to learn that exists in the UK.
Oh.
You really can't find it in the US. I found it at a grocery store once.
But it tasted different, didn't it?
It tasted different. Yeah, it wasn't the same. And, if you want Coke products in glass bottles in the US, you usually get Mexican Coke.
Yeah.
But they don't really make Diet Coke in a Mexican Coke form.
Or at least they don't send it up here.
Yeah.
They do.
So just to see Diet Coke in a glass bottle and be able to order at a bar is just, God, I miss that about the UK. It makes me want to plan a trip right now so I can go back and get my Diet Coke in a glass bottle. Okay, honorable mention.
I love how she explains about food. When it comes on to food, here it's a total different scenario. Your plate is packed. You always rush to get out of the restaurant, like she said, and it's messed up. That's how it is. Um, Portion size, we don't know what portion size is in the US. Like, it's just overwhelmingly a large amount. And I appreciate the fact that she said, look here, it's just right. And I like the fact that she also said, look, it's too much that they get, so I can appreciate the amount of food that we get. As for the fish and chips, yeah, it's a lot. Here, it's just a little twat of fish. You're paying so much money for which don't make any sense to me. And it's not as fresh. Because I did in the last video, they said all fish and chips. It's the fish is always fresh. So I'm excited, guys. I tell you, I'm really excited to get there and experience this for myself.
Mention though, not enough to like be a huge thing on the list, but it is lovely. Okay. So number 2 is kind of a big one. I kind of encompassed a few things in it. And I said that the number 2 thing that surprised us was the efficiency of the UK. And what I mean by that is, I mean, just all these little things that make me as an American feel like we're kind of behind the rest of the world. For example, contactless pay. I think that we're starting to roll that out more and more in the US. But even at a restaurant, the waiter will still take your card and go take it off.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
And bring it back to you.
You're seeing more of it now.
Yeah. I don't know. That was such a pleasant surprise to go to a pub and have the card reader brought to your table to use your card at the table. The card never leaves my hand. It's like, even when you go through a fast food drive-thru, a lot of times you hand it to them. It's like, well, hopefully I see that again.
Well, and I feel like when we did go do that at first, we tried to give our card to them, and they're like, "Why? No, I don't want to touch your card."
Yeah,
that is awesome.
Responsible for that.
Makes sense. But yeah, that was one of the things I think is very surprising in a good way, in a way that I go, why don't we do that in the US? That's weird. That seems antiquated, and
it kind of is.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that it's changing here, but it's still better there.
Yeah, the whole idea of efficiency is like, even from the moment that we got into the airport, we pretty quickly went through customs. Like we got through Border Patrol and customs and everything very quickly. And I feel like the process the other direction is not as easy. No. And I just think as the US, it's like, why do we make things so chaotic and harder than they need to be? I'm sure that that's true in many ways of like, each country has their things they're better at and their things they're worse at. But I just felt like there were so many things we experienced in the UK that just made me feel like it was more efficient, just like trains. And, you just go, you get on your train, there's nothing to it. And I think that seems like anything like that in the US, we have to make things more complicated than they need to be.
Agreed.
And I don't know. Maybe that's just my impression.
I get where you're coming from.
It's not just your impression. It is what it is. Everything here seems to going through customs, getting on a train, getting a taxi. It's like it's always over the top. One thing I can appreciate though, when she said about your card not leaving your hand. I did another video and somebody briefly touched on it. And I like the way that she said she's so happy that she had that experience. Like everywhere she goes, nobody's literally taking her debit card or her credit card and going anywhere with it. And even when they hand it, they're like, no, we don't want that responsibility. What I love about that is that here, there's so much scamming going on. You understand me? And I can see, why not? Why would I want to give you my phone? Just give me the card swiper and we'll be good. So that is a relief. And yes, they're getting better here at doing that, but majority of places still take your card and go away with it. So yeah, I love that.
I think I wrote down one more of that. Oh, queuing. That's another thing. As part of like the efficiency thing is, I think a lot of times in the US, we kind of just like flock and we
don't know nothing about no queuing.
As a mob.
Yeah, as a mob. And even sometimes like going in a drive-thru where like you're taking turns, like maybe 2 cars merge. Gosh, I should have put that one as, that's a whole other thing. But people are just nicer. Like they take turns. Like there's just more turn taking and more politeness of like the back and forth. It just feels more efficient
Yeah,
rather than like 14 cars trying to drive the furthest that they can and cut everyone else off.
that's fair.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's such an American attitude. Not that it doesn't happen other places. Germany is known for being very efficient. And in so many ways, I think the people there are very efficient. One thing I did notice, though, is when we went and got on a boat, we were getting on a tour. And as soon as the boat opened, it was just like this mass of people just like in a clump. And it was almost chaotic. It was a popular, busy summer day tour kind of thing. So it kind of made sense, and maybe it was a bunch of tourists, but it was like, oh, this is not the queuing we are used to in the UK. I don't know that I've ever heard the UK being considered efficient, but I do think that there are a lot of things that are very efficient about the UK, especially from an American perspective.
Nice. I like that.
Learned something from our UK friends. Some of y'all love a queue.
I get it.
Not complaining. Just saying.
The number one thing that I immediately was surprised by from the moment that we set foot into Heathrow Airport and basically throughout the rest of our travels, I just kept going, oh my gosh.
What is that?
Was the bathrooms or the toilets.
Huh.
And how in the US, we have the saddest stalls that you can see through. They're flimsy. I mean, you can see somebody doing their business if you want to. And
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think we experienced that a single time in the UK. Like, I don't even remember seeing that American style of stall in a bathroom.
What?
No.
Yeah, it's just, gosh, the little things that you take for granted. I mean, I was so surprised. Like, why are we doing this so wrong in the US? It seems like a simple enough fix, but I understand that it's probably a lot more expensive to construct full doors, solid bathroom area where you can have privacy. It's definitely more cheap and efficient to throw up a flimsy stall. Yeah, like a cardboard divider.
Well, they're metal. But
I know. They don't feel a lot better than cardboard, though.
I feel like the only thing I would equate that to sort of in the UK is like maybe a pub or bar's bathroom that has like a urinal, a toilet that has a urinal. Might only have like a small divider like in the US, but your regular toilet stalls are way, 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 way better.
They really, truly are. And I think just how flimsy we make them and how cheap and inexpensive they are kind of speaks to the American experience of like, just tear it down and build a new one because that'll be cheaper than preserving this historic building.
Well, I feel like, what was it called? The walkie-talkie building that we went to on our first trip?
Oh, in London.
I don't know if you went into those toilets. I did.
Yeah,
that
they
was
were
super
nice.
Fancy.
Yeah.
I felt like I was in a fancy hotel or something.
Yeah, they were like door to ceiling. Like you got your own private little bathroom.
Yeah.
And it was very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Liked those. I mean, there were a lot of them, experiences like that throughout Britain that America would never. But in all seriousness, we should.
Probably, yeah.
Thanks for listening to us ramble about our experiences in the UK. I think it's been good to reminisce in the videos that we've been making lately because we don't have a current trip planned, but it's been a good reminiscing to do. I'm curious if you have noticed anything, any of the items that we mentioned going the other direction, especially the toilets and the bathroom stalls. Like, have you noticed that when you go to the US? Have you been alarmingly surprised by how terrible our bathrooms are? Thank you.
I can understand where she's coming from with the bathroom because the privacy here is on another level. It's not the first time I've heard about the bathroom, that the bathroom here it's a no-go, and people love to use the bathrooms in the UK. But I'm surprised that's her number one. But like you said, the things that we take for granted, the things that we don't really look at when you go somewhere else, and the little things pop up, people like, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? You understand? So I really enjoy this video. The queuing is on another level. People don't really queue here. People, no. Everybody's bundling up. Everybody's trying to push. Like I said, I love that. And that's something that I know that is big. You guys are big on there, the queuing. Apart from that, awesome video. Like the fact that you can get up and go. You don't have to. There's no extra long hassle to get things done. Surprising about you don't need to have a car. That was one for me. And I asked earlier, is in the shower is the top separate as well? So that's it from your girl. Come on in, rock back, put a smile on your face and enjoy. Don't forget to do what? Oops. That's my cue. That's my wake up call to get up, guys, to start getting stuff prepped for kids to go to school.
I woke up at 6. You woke up earlier than 6.
Yeah. See, there are some of them is already up. But that's my alarm, not theirs. But some reason they're up. They went to bed extra early last night. Anyway, I'm yapping. Love you guys, and I'll definitely catch you guys in another one. Be good, be kind, be safe. Bye.